All right. So now one of the core components of React is JSX. So let's understand what is JSX. Okay. So if you see the generic code which we have used to create our first React app, that is create React app, npx create React app and the app name, you will find something like an inline HTML tag. So let's go to the code and then show you over there. Now you can see that you have something like this. Okay. And this is not exactly an HTML, neither it is a JavaScript. So if you imagine that I'm writing a JavaScript function and I'm putting an HTML tag inside the JavaScript function, and generally if you need to do that, you use something like double quote or use a DOM property to do that. But here we are not doing any of this. So this looks a bit funny, right? So what do you what you really understand by JSX is a kind of abstraction layer which makes the React developers' life easy. So the React embraces the fact that rendering logic is inherently coupled with other UI logic, how events are handled, how state changes over time, and how the data is prepared for display. So instead of you artificially separating the technologies by putting markup logic in separate file, React actually brings them together in a loosely coupled manner. Okay, but one thing to remember that the JSX JavaScript XML is not the mandatory thing in React, but most people find it helpful as a visual aid when working with UI inside the JavaScript file, right? So it allows React to show more useful error and warning messages, etc. Right? So when you build an element like here, so you have like an h1 tag, right? If I just take it out and then build an element, right? So what you can do, you can create an element outside this function here. So I say const element equals to this. And I can use this element inside here as a variable, right? So you can actually bring in a lot more different way of writing HTML inside that. So if it really brings in some dynamic value over here, let's say a variable called full name, which is apparently declared over here. Let's say let full name equals to Riju. So, and then you get this full name added as part of this, and it shows up here. So you can see that it basically helps you build up things more logically in a sense when you use this kind of syntax. You can live without it, but having this as part of your React makes your life easier. So you bring in the HTML element into your JavaScript logic directly, and then you can see and view the element which you are trying to build, which finally will give you an output is part of your file and then part of the logic, right? And this is absolutely safe to use JSX, and JSX also prevents injection attacks, which means that by default, the React DOM escapes any value embedded in JSX before rendering them. Thus, it ensures that you can never inject anything that's not explicitly written in your application. Everything is converted to a string before being rendered. So that's why it helps prevent XSS or cross-site scripting attacks, right? So JSX is very, very powerful, though it looks very simple, but very, very, very powerful from a security perspective, right? Remember that when you build React, that you are working on JSX, and then you are basic security concern like injecting scripts, etc., are being handled automatically within your JSX. So you are kind of relieved in the sense like whether people will be able to um, um, bun put bunch of chunks into your code and do harm in your server of that and any of this kind of sort of stuff. Now, JSX is not neither JavaScript nor an HTML, right? It's in between something. Now, React uses something called Babel language definition to basically convert this JSX into a JavaScript, right? Proper JavaScript. So that kind of translation happens, right? So it also helps you translate, the Babel helps you translate the ES6 plus code to JSX code and to the JavaScript code and JSX to the properly rendered thing. Um, all done for you. So Babel is part of React. So when you write something in the React application, it is handled by the React thing, and you can see that we have got dependencies available, right? So, which basically does take care of all this React, React DOM, React script, all of them take care of these kind of conversions, etc., which we don't need to really worry too much about, right? So that's a bit of about JSX, and then we'll be using it. So there is nothing new you need to learn for this React learning purpose. It is just something you need to know about. Okay, hope this was helpful, and we'll talk about more in our upcoming video for React component and it's many more things.